All right, guys. Well, good evening. How you doing? Wait, one second. My name is Silvio Pupo. This is Roberto Romay and Victor Romero, Lorenzo Del Zoppo. And today we're going to be talking about identity management and blockchain. We have a couple of special guests. You see that you already had this wonderful gentleman telling you a little bit about his technology and what he's working on. We also have Alessandro Chiarini in the back. Say hi, Alessandro. Yep. Alessandro is the CEO of Fortress. Fortress is a biometric voice recognition company. He is being applied for cybersecurity or any security protocol across different industries. So we have a couple of experts that are actually doing real applications in terms of identity management. There's another company that I sit on the board of called Digital Town. Digital Town just did a hackathon. They're in Austin, also rolling out here in Miami to do a Miami coin. And Digital Town had a hackathon on identity management that they won, and was essentially figuring out how they could help people living in the street that always lose their documents and don't have anything, come up with a solution that would allow them to access their benefits, their social security, their healthcare, their records, so on and so forth. And it's really just a simple QR code.
Who are we?
We're the Government Blockchain Association. Government Blockchain Association is, we're about 100 chapters strong all over the world. We're a nonprofit organization paid for by members, so thank you, and please consider joining our organization. And we have a series of experts all over the world across different segments called working groups, as well as groups of special interest, which include some academia, universities, amongst others. Just as if you don't mind, I know that you guys get a chance to interchange and trade notes and meet each other. Usually we do that as one of the the formalities of understanding who we have in the room. How many people here, just to get a feel, have already maybe invested or looked at investments into cryptocurrency?
Yeah, I lost a lot of money. That's a joke. I made a lot of money.
Good. You're really good. The guy sitting next to you has actually had a really good success story too.
Yeah.
How many people have already feel like they have a baseline understanding of blockchain? Everybody. Wonderful. Awesome. Miami is more and more leading in blockchain technology. And I think that really this offers an opportunity for Miami to distinguish itself as the sort of teenager that's discovering identity as our way of being able to identify. And we want to be able to merge the public sector and the private sector, the people around the table, to exchange ideas really, and then come up with solutions that we can tackle together, just like the working groups are doing in DC and around the world. Right now we're looking at doing consortiums with municipalities. And we'd like to, we encourage you to, after this, approach us and find out a little bit more about our membership organization, how you can get involved. Every month, at the end of the month, or the other month, we're doing a blockchain 101 course. We're doing a certification. The certification is a global certification, and we'll give you access to, if you become a member, you can go onto our portal, you can access all the other resources that we have online. There's lots and lots and lots of resources online. GBA Global has spent a lot of time, money to build out these resources to give it to all the members that join. But not just that, at the local level, we want to create working groups. So anybody here in healthcare? Anyone here in cybersecurity? Anyone here in government? Anyone here in transportation? Anyone here in telecom? Anyone here in finance? Anyone here in finance? Yeah. Okay. So within all these working groups, right? Anyone a programmer? Any programmers in the room? Yeah, we have our programmers. So what we want to do is have these dynamic experts at a local level, at a hyper-local level, I should say. So when we come across challenges, or City of Miami, or City of Coral Gables, or Miami-Dade County, or Fort Lauderdale, et cetera, comes up with a problem, we have our own experts, just like we have at a global level, that our local experts say, you're in finance and you get involved with the banking working, right? So you're able to download and upload all the information that we need constantly to be up to date in what the latest and the greatest is. So when we have an obstacle, you're able to execute at the local level. And so that's what we're operating. So corporate members could also join and then take advantage of contract opportunities. So anyway, I won't mention more. I think that's enough for GBA Global. GBA, that's what we're doing. Lorenzo is a compliance attorney and very active in the blockchain space. He's launched his own companies. We're entrepreneurial. He has a couple of startups that he's working on. He's launched his ICO as well.
Yep.
So we have a lot of, I think, experience in the room. And anyway, that's that for that. So without further ado, I'm not going to hold you guys anymore. I'd like for our guests to be able to talk a little bit about their use cases and what they're doing in identity management. And just as a primer, we're going to go over where the industry is and what we have to present to you. Then we'll open up the floor for everybody. It's an open format. You know, we'll give maybe 15, 20 minutes so you guys can talk about what you're doing. And then it'll be open format for us to be able to brainstorm or bring anything up. Does that sound okay? All right. So is there any takeaway that anybody has, particularly from today, that you'd like to accomplish? Any particular takeaways? Okay. Renzo, you want to give a presentation?
Yes. Another point. Tonight, the presentation, the original topic was identity management on the blockchain. That's the introduction. As we said, the way that we have our format, we are not here to lecture anybody. The whole plan is to have unlimited conversation, like in an Italian wedding. I like that. I don't know. I just like that picture in general. And so tonight, as I said, it's kind of a joint event between the identity management and blockchain technology and AI and blockchain. Because the other topic that will be touched in private will be here, and we're going to talk a little bit more on that specific subject. I'm going to start to introduce the identity management because this is probably like the most important thing. In my opinion, this will be the future of blockchain. Absolutely. Like this is gonna, our identity will be on the blockchain. There are no doubt about that. And why I have no doubt? Because it's incredibly convenient. It's immutable. The blockchain is immutable. And the things that there are only two things you want that are immutable, like your identity and what you own, your assets. So those are the two main things. That's why, in my opinion, the future is identity management and real estate. The financing part, all that funny stuff about Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the finance is just a tool. There's something that is, that yes, it will have great implication, and it will always be there for the transaction. But the core part that will tie to that everything will tie to that, will be like the physical assets that are immutable. In this case, like identity and real estate. Real estate is another topic. So anyway, we are not going to talk about that. We want to touch it from a particular point of view. Okay, the point of view is, as I said, what we are doing here, we are very focused on social impact. And one of the biggest issues with the identity is that a big chunk of the worldwide population has issues with their own identity. Like for us, it's simple. Like we are used. We have an issue. We walk with our identity. We walk in a driver license office or a passport agency, and we can get all the information that we want from there. Well, but that's not a reality for a lot of people. Let's just remember all the discussion that we had about the voting rights and what kind of IDs that had to be presented even to register for voting here in the US, first world country. Okay, let's try to present that and thinking about in a different context in something like way wider, like in a third world country. Those, for that particular implication, it's huge. It's huge because you can may have, imagine if you were born in the favelas of Brazil. Okay? You were in the favela do Brazil, Amocinho, that is near Rio de Janeiro. I live there, it's pretty cool. There's some like nobody else. And but in that area, you have people that lots of them, they were not even born in a hospital. Okay, they were born inside the favela, they grew up in the favela, they do not have registration, nobody knows who they are. In fact, there are so-called meninos de rua that are these kids that they can assault you, like when you stop at the traffic light. Okay, and they fall under this particular group. It looks like there are a big chunk of our population, worldwide population, 2 billion, that they have issues with verifying their own ID, who they are. Think about also certain areas of places in the Middle East, or think about like areas that are very tribal, like even in Africa, that they never really had like a real records of all this, of who they were. So this is like it's something that is there, is very visible, and it became particularly visible with the issues of the refugee crisis. That was in the news. Everybody heard about that, and there was people who didn't like them. But let's remember, these are people that they received. Their house was bombed, their country was bombed, they got stripped out of all their assets, they were run away, and they crossed border in a way that was not very legal sometimes. Okay, these people, it's very difficult for them to prove who they actually are. And this is, I can say, okay. And this is what we are used to. We are used to our ID representatives in various levels. We can have data of our social security number. We can have data related to our bank account, our financial transaction, our marriage, all these pieces of data that when we think about the ID, we always think about like first thing that comes out is your driver license that you always have with you. Well, this is just a piece. There are a lot of things that are attached to all this. Like that, who you are is just the first step. Think about when you open an account in a bank, you walk into a bank and they ask you, they know your customer policy, they're so-called the KYC, they ask you who you are and they need to verify who you actually are. Okay, that's only the first step. Why? Because on top of that, you attach a million of others. That is like even get your biometric information. The great advantage with the blockchain is the fact that all those pieces of information can be stored in a safe place. And currently, there are some guidelines, and this is where it comes out our position. We are the Government Blockchain Association. We try to foster a relationship in between public and private, and that's why it's so relevant, the ID, the digital,
Identity
the ID management for us. Because the government has a strong interest in this. The interest, as I said, can be at the voting rights, but also driver license, and if you think about property, titles, and all this they attach. And that's why they issue their own specific protocols. So there are actually protocols that were issued relatively recently, because nowadays all this data is going in some sort of database, electronic database. And this electronic database has certain kind of requirement, particularly related to safety.
Lorenzo, do you know, talking about the retina scan and the law, can you go back there?
Yeah.
And you guys know the refugee crisis that's happening obviously between Africa, people trying to go over to Greece, everybody waiting there. There was a solution that the UN came up with, which is a retina scan. to be able to allocate, your portion of, towels, soap, water, and a tent, for example, right? And they're just they're basically, because people are coming with the documents, taking your ID from your retina and then using that as your fingerprint to do it. Is there any guideline for that? Do you know that project, Lorenzo?
Yes, I know about the project, but this was a test. The biggest issue in reality is where the data is stored and who is actually managing the data. Because the problem with this data, you're a refugee, you don't really want your identity to be accessed by other people.
Right.
That's the biggest problem. The advantage of the blockchain is who can access that? Only the individual. That particular individual is the one that has access to the data. So there are some, we are at the level of testing still. We have certain area of the world, like in Estonia, they create digital citizenship. For instance, a certain area of the world that they are trying to push in this direction, but it hasn't been like fully achieved yet. Well, blockchain. Why? That's the whole point is like why blockchain intersects so well with the identity management part. Because the best part, in my opinion, like as I said, this is an open floor. The best is this. Think about Haiti. Think about what happened in a place like Haiti that you suddenly get hit by everything, because Haiti got hit by everything. It can be a hurricane, it can be like a earthquake, a tsunami, something happens there all the time. So big problem there was in fact where the data was stored. That the data was stored there in the country, and a lot of those data was wiped out. And one of the cases were like there are a specific case that was related to real estate property, and a lot of people like start claiming certain assets that instead were owned by other people. But since there was this, a lot of government building got destroyed, there were a server there where the data was stored, got lost. Great advantage of blockchain. It's not, the server is not in one place. It's everywhere. It can be anywhere in the world. Everybody share this data that actually is encrypted. So, from a disaster recovery standpoint, it's a great tool. This is probably one of the best things about that, about the blockchain. Then, of course, is permission, it's secure because all the data is encrypted. Only the person only the individual can access that. There are a bunch of computer in between, and like there is the community that practically protect the security of the information. Like if there is some hacker, somebody that's trying to artificially modify those data, there is like the community that protect the data instead of like some centralized form like a firewall or whatever technical thing. How the blockchain work? You said that you're familiar with the blockchain. Everybody already heard about a lot about that, so I'm gonna skip that because it's so boring. I heard it a million times. Go ahead.
Have you heard of the vending machine that Civic made during Consensus this year?
Which one is it?
Fears. The Consensus this year, Civic, they're an identity platform.
Right.
Civic.
Right.
Civic. Oh yeah.
Right.
I love those guys.
They made a vending machine at Consensus that was able to anonymously prove that you were over 21 and give you a beer.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but that's is the perfect example of why we need that. And you need that because
You can't give your ID to the machine.
yeah, but the great part is when you walk into a store, let's say I go to Publix and I want to purchase some alcohol, and they ask you for your ID. I don't really want to show them where is my address, who am I even, why they have to know my name. I do not want this kind of information to be shared with whoever this person. The only thing, I don't even want them to know my date of birth. The only thing that they need to know is if I'm older than that, period. This is the greatest part, like the sharing of the data, of the information with the people. So I like your example. That is,
There's an article about it, you can Google.
oh yeah, yes,
And then you can do it.
and Civica has a huge community, and they are doing a lot of relationship. And what my project, by the way, also have relationship. So it's the other part that is very, when we talk about the important part, and everybody can pitch it, it's why it's so also relevant is also because of the variety of information that can pile up and can be added in the same place where it's stored this identity. You do not have to think about your identity as only your basic formal data. You also have to think about everything that is attached to that, like your military record, medical record, for healthcare purposes, all this kind of information for security purposes they could be stored on the blockchain. Government. There are a bunch of projects here in Florida. Bill 1357, sponsored by Senator James Grant in January. They wanted to put our Florida driver license on the blockchain. Great project, got lost on the floor of discussion, unfortunately. But there are a bunch of other very interesting projects that are going on. There are many identity platform people that is coming with great idea. What he was mentioning was this guy or this guy. That I said that I like them particularly. They are doing a very interesting project. However, I do not agree with the kind of blockchain that they are using, but for the moment is the best that we, in my opinion, that we have. I'm a big EOS fan, so I really think that the future of ID, particularly because of the size and the speed, EOS will be the future. The one that is very relevant, and then I'm almost done with my part, I didn't think to speak that long, is the economic identity. The economic identity, why the economic identity is so important? Well, guys, think about how many times your economic identity is fundamental to do everything, particularly here in America, to do something. Let's say that you need to buy a car, you need to buy a house, even an appliance, and you need some credit. Okay, that kind of information, the trust, your history, what you represent, that is what we call the economic identity. Your footprint in the economic universe. Will be really, really important, particularly when we're going to move in a kind of more financial system, because that's going to happen. Banks, they're going to go. Sorry for whoever thinks the bank is going to exist in a few years. That ain't going to happen, besides the central banks. And the economic identity will be the way that in the blockchain we're going to say not only who we are, but what good, how much we are worth it. So, Victor, you want to say something?
Yeah, instead have a credit score, we can have a social score.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Why only how good we are paid? I think about like in a tribal society that you have the whole community that will say how good is this guy. This guy, when make a business, is fantastic. This is the same thing. We have the consensus that is going to help for that. Dignity through identity is a particular concept that is being used by various companies, and that there is kind of a movement attached to that. It's really how to harness all these various elements attached to the individual identity. And this is how we are seeing it. This is how the Government Blockchain Association is seeing the evolution from the various silos of the local bank, the employer, the international NGOs, and how that instead we're gonna merge in the economic identity. Like all these elements that they follow the families, the individuals. All this data that is stored in the blockchain is accessible everywhere in the world, and you know, they do not lose who they are, particularly if in this case, in the specific case of the refugees. This who we are, and this is where you can get more information about the government association. After that, let me switch to my friend Pravi, that he instead is going to talk about, we're going to move from identity to AI. Okay, there is.
Bravo! Encore! No encore! Bravo!
No, I need another glass of wine for that. Okay? Somebody go there and pick up some glasses.
Before the bar closes.
Yeah, before the bar closes. Otherwise we're screwed, okay? Brad, hey.
Yeah, so you know what? The greatest thing about Miami is, you know, we're big enough to matter, especially in mindshare, but we're small enough that we all know each other. So like Lorenzo and I are part of several different like groups together, so he comes to. So it's like really easy to do this type of collaboration here in Miami, which would be much more difficult in other cities. So yeah, thanks for having us, Lorenzo.
Pleasure.
Can you explain to people so they understand what you have here?
Okay,
Myself
yeah. It's
Please
pretty interesting setup here. So
What
this is
is
it. So we have the VR camera here. This is like a hack camera. We changed up the heat sink. So I'm a filmmaker on the side. So I have a movie on Netflix and I have a couple of VR zombie films. And we have the ambient sound right here, 3D sound.
Can you explain what it is? Nobody knows what is ambient sound.
So
What's an embryonic sample?
yeah, so like, you know, if you have a VR headset on, you turn your head. You basically, as you turn your head, the sound still stays there, right? So the sound hits your ears at different rates. So this has got like six microphones on that. And if you put something into 3D, you spatialize it. So as you walk around, you know, you can actually walk around sound as well. That's a little bit more programmatic. But it's definitely like off topic, so I'm already out. So it's just
This is also active, the other little camera over there?
yeah, so that's basically, so these cameras are overheat, so you know, it's just the film gas too, so different things. So yeah, so we actually have a couple more speakers, so I'll introduce the concept. So I'm a startup guy, you know, my main office is in Silicon Valley, I'm filmmaking in LA, but you know, I grew up down here, went to UF, so mine is close to my heart. So we actually, a funny thing, you know, a lot of the most successful startups in the world, which you think is successful, they actually have a basis here in Miami. Like Jeff Bezos went to high school in Miami. I'm not sure if you guys know that. His stepdad is a Cuban immigrant.
Palmetto High.
Yeah. Like Sheryl Sandberg, his dad's still a doctor in Fort Lauderdale. He's an ophthalmologist and CEO of Facebook. Facebook itself was originally incorporated here in Miami. The co-founder went to Gulf Prague. So I can go on and on. So, but we have, like, as part of that thing, we have something called the Miami Mafia. People from Miami who are in LA and San Francisco, not just techies, but we all try to like help each other. So, you know, we actually, you know, it's pretty good. You know. So some people have the MIT Alumni Association. We have the Miami-based city thing. So let me dive into. So basically, well, a lot of us here, there's several different groups that, let's say the Miami Data Science Study Group here. We have the EOS Miami crowd and the Government Blockchain Association. So, and how they all fit together. The topic we'll talk about is identity management with facial recognition. So we have to like, you know, these are such large topics. We have to like pick at least one silo, you know, and through that silo we can touch on different topics. That's how people do like hello world, right? So we do one compile hello world, and kind of like to get to that point, we hit upon a lot of the major topics. So like we went over blockchain, and so AI, what is that, right? So the AI aspect is you're basically guessing at reality. You're taking the probabilistic view of reality. while blockchain is deterministic, right? Blockchain records the past or records the present, while AI is predicting the future. So the intersection of those two technologies is creating some emergent behavior, things that aren't available with just AI or just blockchain. It's basically creating a whole new ecosystem. So they're the first startups that are kind of like getting funded or doing ICOs. You know, they're kind of like the typical marketplaces. So if you're a data scientist, you can basically, you know, in the past you basically had to write an academic paper or you open source research. You couldn't make a living on it. So basically, you know, you lived off your professor's salary or whatever. But now people are actually doing ICOs and actually selling their AI out of the utility token. So the first company that did an ICO on that is Singularity Net. So they did a $34 million ICO. And basically, it's a marketplace to sell your AI algorithms. The next, so basically, there's an ecosystem, but they're all kind of like very basic, and they're either just they're using like blockchain as typical like transfer of value, not really doing anything like advanced with smart contracts, doing anything algorithmic. So we'll talk about more of that here, but one use case just for the hello world aspect about what facial recognition and the enemy is. So obviously facial recognition is a really cool use case for AI, right? How do you put that and combine that with blockchain? So one company in Miami has a cool use case called Kairos. And what they're doing is they have an API to your own facial recognition, and they train the models. But what they're doing is they're using your face to unlock their hardware walls. Right? So basically their use case is you can't be hacked unless you have the biometrics to actually unlock the walls. They have a lot of other use cases, that's one right there. As far as like some of the other things that we can go beyond as time permitting, beyond just a marketplace or just facial recognition, is what happens in a smart contract. Right? Smart contract is trying to do things, but it needs data from the real world. And how do you get that data? You basically get the data from the Oracle. Right? So if you guys have ever made a smart contract, the big pain point right now is getting data onto the blockchain. So in Oracle right now, for one single notarized call costs $15. That's not sustainable. Let alone people are talking about complaining like gas or anything else, right? Let alone the data is actually a lot more than that. So a single call, having a human look at that data, see it's actually verified, like your Yahoo Sports, fantasy football, thing is legit. If you don't want to verify, it still costs 30 cents, right? So oracles can be used as an AI to determine probabilistically, predict that some data is accurate, or you can fill in the blanks, so you can get on data, blockchain that's on data built into your smart contract, and that's definitely not possible without AI. So there's just some of the few use cases. So I'll stop right here right now, so I'll let the last speaker go on, and then as we have questions, I'll get back on and we'll answer those questions specifically. We have a lot of time, but I want to, a lot of people here from many different groups, so I don't want to just take up all the time. So this is Marcus.
Hi guys.
So Marcus is one of the top biometric programmers in South Florida. He came all the way, and Trish came all the way from Jupiter today for the first time. She hasn't been in Miami in 20 years, so
just for this,
yeah, just for this. So we're going to welcome them. And so Marcus has worked on a lot of cool things with biometrics beyond facial recognition, about even iris scanning and looking at the blood vessels and everything. So I'll let Marcus take the floor.
Okay. Unfortunately, Lorenzo took a lot of my thunder. So thank you. It was really awesome, but it's very much narrowed down what I have to talk about. But I always like to start when I look at any kind of computer solution. I always start from the human factor itself, right? So, and when it comes to identity, I gotta say we've been doing identity management since the beginning of time, right? We constantly do it. We look at people around us and we start building these biometric, matrices in our head about how people change. Because if you look at a picture that's on my ID 10 years ago, it doesn't look almost nothing like. I've changed a lot in the last 10 years. To the point where when I get pulled over, the cop asks me to take off my glasses and they really look at me like, "Are you sure this is you?" I really doubted it. But yet, as human beings, normally as we progress, we do that all the time. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is when it comes to AI, they almost have to think in the same way, right? AI is basically going to replace the human interaction that you are doing. So what I've worked with and what I've seen working out there in terms of AI. Basically, just how do you compare over time, and what can you determine from the small piece of information that you get? You know, as human beings, we don't use our eyes very efficiently. We actually just go by little pieces of information. We kind of piece it together, and that's how we determine that something is what it is. The same way, you can actually use AI to, for instance, do a lot of forensics, and this is where I kind of see the coolest application of it. Imagine this: you have a picture of a person that has a basically totally masked except this little small area. Is it possible to determine the identity of this person just based on a little piece of information that you have right there? This is a real life application that actually happened. There's a group in the Carnegie Mellon University that was able to identify a jihad warrior that beheaded somebody based on just this. They actually found him in Great Britain. Did whatever he did, went back home, and got nabbed because they actually were able to reconstruct his entire face using AI, and that's kind of where I think you know, facial recognition and AI really is coming in as powerful. So that's kind of all I have on this.
So, can you talk about your actual day job?
Yeah, now at this point, I'm actually more in data protection. I work for a pharmaceutical company, so I'm dealing with a lot of, I have to constantly think about how am I going to keep patient data protected, safe, that we can't, you know, somehow leak it out. And in that sense, I'm very much interested in the blockchain. As Lauren was mentioning, you can put all your medical records on, you can kind of lock it up or unlock it as needed to provide that data to whoever needs to consume it in the as a medical provider. And you know, being able to pass on your very sensitive medical information securely is really like the ultimate goal that I have to deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah. So Marcus works for a publicly traded NASDAQ company in Palm Beach, and then in your previous job at
Crossmatch, yeah, I work at Crossmatch. Crossmatch is a fingerprint kind of biometric company that's actually, they started with fingerprint, they went into ocular scanners. That was, and then we also ventured into background checking. It's another form of identity management where you have to really kind of, you know, trying to unearth anything that somebody's trying to hide. It's kind of like the opposite of blockchain, right? It's, when you, whether you do it through forensics or for forensics, or whether you do it for just, you know, background checking for job applications, for instance, you really want to be able to unearth, you know, what this person did. And in order to identify that you really have the right person, you have to collect enough information so that you don't accidentally get the background information from somebody else. You know, so fingerprint scanning, sometimes actually taking images of the retina was part of that, and then collecting just basic demographic information. I always thought, you know, when I was working there, that one of the interesting factors about scanners is that, you know, of course we sold to government agencies, and one of the requirements was is that a lot of times, for instance, for fingerprints, you had to make sure that there isn't just about the fingerprints, it's also about the fact that there must be still a pulse in it.
They cut it off.
Yeah. Another thing is like ocular scanners. You have to make sure there is actually blood flowing through the retina, because someone could gouge an eye out and just use it as an entry method, right? So I thought that was kind of the dark side of the
That's very dark. I didn't know, I was like, really?
It's a serious concern that you have to keep in mind. Even
Sounds like the jihad, when the guy was chopping off the head.
Yeah, and you know, another factor is like for facial recognition, and this is maybe something you have to think about. I mean, I'm by no chance, you know, stretch of the imagination, a PI or blockchain expert, but it's something you have to think about. You can kill somebody and just drag their whole entire body up to a facial recognition scanner and still get in, right? So you have to maybe also figure out how you can
See if they're
find
breathing.
signs of life.
I think they're breathing.
So how can you figure out that there is blood in the finger and they didn't chop off the finger and they?
Body temperature and there's a pulse and you know that little bit that you get at the hospital? It's kind of like that.
Identity device, you pay and tap now,
Right.
you're gonna be able to pay and ID yourself now. So that doesn't serve everybody, right? So that doesn't serve the people in Ethiopia, it doesn't serve the people in many other places. We're starting with this solution and then we have to expand that into how do we bring it out on the blockchain? Because at the end of the day, a blockchain is still the database, regardless of whether you distribute the ledger or whether you put it in several different nodes. There is a chance of breakage on the node, there is a chance of the nodes not talking to each other well, there is compromising, it's immutable, it's great. I don't think it's solved yet, and that's our perspective on it. But we do feel, and we're looking at how do we put our bits and pieces of voice on the blockchain. Because then,
So you're going to that way because the blockchain, even if it's encrypted.
right.
you know,
Well, and that's,
No,
right.
so,
Yeah, we're launching a solution to solve the actual certificate that's stored on the node because that's compromisable, right? So instead of actually doing identity with a certificate on the actual computer, we'll do it on the cloud, but we'll leave it as an identification. We're an identification SaaS service. We're identification as a service, basically. And if we can determine where that service needs to reside, then that's the trick, right? So who resides? Is it a distribution of nodes that resides, potentially? Our problem is we can't actually transact and recognize the voice by keeping bits of voices all around because computationally it wouldn't be fast enough for us. We do it in 2 seconds. Question?
How many characters do you need? If I'm saying my name, is that long enough? How much do I need to talk until you can recognize me?
Great question, and actually we got our answer from the Phoenicians, and actually that Epcot Law, when you go in the beginning, they talk about the Phoenicians. So we did ours as numeric. We don't use vowels, we don't use anything. So numeric made us international right away and in any language that we wanted. So you record a digit of 10 numbers. So it's almost like a token and a code, right? And we give you 10 different numbers to read every time, and we tie it to the session, and we tie it to your mobile. So we did it numeric.
So every time I log into the computer, I have to read 10 digits?
Yeah, we display the 10 digits for you to read. Yeah, so it's always different, you know. And so now we're doing it with door card readers. We're doing it with the Department of Homeland Security for first responders, right? So a great use case, right? They come with masks and gloves. They can't do a retinal scan. They can't do a facial. They have to talk because that's their only need. So there's great use cases. You know, I think that all the biometrics have their use cases which work better. I think ours has a unique characteristic for 2 reasons. People aren't threatened by it. We actually now have kind of reformed ourselves in a customer experience company because that's what we are. We want to make the customer not get pissed off that they have to answer challenge questions and do all the things that they hate to do about their identity. So ultimately, that's what biometrics provides, is a better user experience, and then from there you lead to a more higher calling, which is a global identity provider.
So what are your challenges? Go on,
So,
go for it.
you know, from a voice perspective, loud noise, you know, you lose your voice completely, that's obviously the biggest challenge. And that's why we incorporated passive or behavioral biometrics. So the behavioral, a lot of our big consultants say that that's the feature, right? That really the patterning of a user and the way that they do things really makes it 0 footprint for them because they're not doing anything, they're just being themselves, right? They don't even have to talk, speak, look at the camera, nothing, right?
What are you measuring when you say behavioral?
So we measure the way that you're tapping and typing on your phone, the way you're holding your phone. There's 100 different metrics. Yeah, and they're all happening real time while you're on your phone. So if you allow us to do it at all times, then it's actually much better. But if you do it in whatever session of the app that you're in, that's a little shorter. But it's 2 things that's really nice about that. It's on device, so it's you. Nobody else has it, right? So it's actually identifying you. It is all happening on the processor of the phone. And then we use the voice biometric as a step-up authentication for next-level authentication where you want to identify.
So what do you do if you lose the phone? How do you
You'll
transfer
have
over?
to, yeah, you'll have to basically get your new phone and we re-register your voice print. You know, because right now our voice print is SaaS, it's on the cloud somewhere, right? So, but the behavioral is just turning on the phone, re-registering the phone, and just going through the motions again. You'll have to kind of reset it up.
Without creating any new routines, why don't you just count the femtoseconds between numbers of the 10 numbers that someone?
Well, that's a great question. So we started with vowel recognition like Nuance and all the big companies do,
Right.
and we actually are patenting our own solution, which is endpoint detection, which is exactly what you're saying. So
Very good.
our new patents that came out this month are based on stop and start of a voice rather than vowels because we have 150 languages. It would be very hard to do vowels. So we figured, and it also makes it mobile because the processing of a big multi-language database is huge. Start and stop really makes it able to run on the processor of a phone, which leads to the identity being on the phone.
It is a business method pattern?
I'm sorry?
Is a business method pattern?
Business method, it's basically a combination of two types of recognition, which is.
No,
But
it's
your
just
patent-
about the patent.
Your patent isn't a business method
What-
patent.
It's a business method patent, correct, yeah.
What kind of goal for the United Nations doing over the project that you do? What kind of goal?
So in Geneva, we're doing it for access to the Grand Palace, because right now they came up with a whole new identity system that everybody hates, which is a combination of the card and a facial biometric that they were trying out. And in the UN, it was actually to do it with the voice recognition for people that don't have any devices. So it's just kind of the same thing that they were doing with the facial, which is a little bit harder because of conditions and different things that would go on where they felt the voice message. So it's a proof of concept.
How do you deal with the change of voice?
Another
Like-
great question. So there's two times in your life that you're going to have a change in voice: is puberty and 60s. So in puberty, obviously you have a voice change because you have one.
And alcohol.
Yeah, and no alcohol. But in your 60s, so it's actually very interesting. In your 60s, you shrink, right? So as you get older, your body gets smaller, and your physical characteristics of your throat change. Okay. So there's other instances where you'll have a problem. So I had a big event on a Monday. On Friday, I got my wisdom teeth taken out. So I get to my event on Monday, I'm supposed to be on stage, and I try to do my print, nothing was working. I'm calling my partner, I'm going to kill you. And he says, well, you have to re-register your voice. You got all your wisdom teeth taken out. As soon as I re-registered, it wasn't a problem. So it's physical characteristics of sound waves, which is pitch and cadence coming out of your mouth that we're measuring. And it was a great proof of
So
concept.
braces, things like that would also.
Actually, yeah, when I got Invisalign, I had to redo it again.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I have that too.
Gotcha.
I think it would be interesting to think about health. For instance, my cousin, they diagnosed his Parkinson's because he had a very low voice. He had a soft voice. And all the time he tried to improve, he thought he needed the ENT
Okay.
because, of ear, nose, throat, because
Yeah.
he thought about his voice.
Yeah.
And then they found out Parkinson's. So it'd be interesting almost those voice changes
Yep,
that
so
you could
determine.
do, predictions.
So IBM Watson does a little bit of that right now. What we had a challenge with is, again, the AI that's out there for voice right now is that every human is so unique that you can't pattern it against other people because it's really hard right now and you just need massive amounts of data. The actual next solution that we're looking at is nerve impulses that go down to your hand. So you wear a Fitbit and your hand gets told to move, and those nerve impulses have a pattern as well. So it's actually like a nerve identification.
Do those also change with age and time, or?
Those change constantly, but it creates a pattern. All these are simple algorithms that run to give you, an XYZ and time pattern, and then from there.
And where are you doing the development?
So my partner is from India. We do it in Hyderabad and an IIT university, and that's where he's actually a professor. We partnered with some PhD professors there from British Telecom, and we started building it all there. I designed the first one myself. So actually, I did my own first algorithm in the shower, sort of, and then later in the bathroom. Yeah. I kept on thinking of the waves and things I had to do, and it was pretty good at the time, and it started just going. But then we got some real people involved. I took mine out. I was pretty sad for a couple of days.
What kind of AIs do you use? Neural networks?
Neural network. It's a deep neural network. Yeah.
What kind of neural network? Pure neural networks? Is it sequence?
So there you're going to start going over mine. That'll be more my CTO and PhD question, my data scientist question. So we use a deep neural network. We're doing what's called the GMM approach and an MFCC approach. So we're actually combining two different types of analyses. So no, that was it. Question?
Well, are there ever a circumstance where two people have similar enough voices that you
Great
can't tell
question.
them
My wife's an identical twin. So I had the perfect case study at home, right?
Okay.
So she's an inch shorter though, so never matched. So people that impersonate your voice still won't work because they have a completely different measurement, for pitch and cadence. The only time it's ever gotten hacked at HSBC in an IVR scenario was after they tried to brute force it 9 times. But we cut it at 3, so if you don't do it at 3, you'll have to use the behavior. So, there's things that you can do. Also, they can't record your voice and play it back because we send them something different to say every time. So, the ultimate goal of it is to really use what's called natural speech and to recognize whatever you say at any moment. But that requires right now a big server and a lot of data, and that'll never fit on a mobile. So right now it has to be tokenized and it has to be a small subset of data.
How would it work if you want to do, you described the blockchain component that you were talking about?
Kind of like one of your slides that was up there. The metadata of that person can exist in all the different nodes of the blockchain. We were looking at distributing actually we have 39 different kind of algorithmic responses that need to be stored potentially in the blockchain. But we wouldn't give you an identity back fast enough for people to really like it. And we do it in 2 seconds now on a database on a SaaS. But if we did it in the blockchain right now, we're up to a minute and a half, and it wouldn't be what someone would want to use. So I think we're going to stick with the metadata of what it is that that identity provides for right now, and the identity just will reside with the user on the phone. Right? So that will be your key. Right? Same thing with the cryptographic key that exists on the node. We'll replace that with the identity server.
And your immediate use cases that you're working on right now?
Yep, so
Commercialization?
we're in 3 different market segments. We're in financial services, so we serve banks. We do it as a proof of life, IVR customer call. Instead of the challenge question, we just give them a voice print. We do it in mobile banking transactions. So a lot of these mobile bankings are starting to be built on blockchain, but we're just providing our identity piece. We do it in healthcare. So we did it in a telemedicine application. This company here in Miami that's trying to sell their telemedicine app to right now Aetna, and instead of reading a PIN, which people had trouble with, they could just talk, and every time they got a prescription, they could actually authenticate themselves with a sequence of numbers. And then in government, we just got part of a grant in the Department of Homeland Security to identify first responders as they get to an accident scene. So there's a lot of grants as far as identity right now, and I was telling Silvia, the really strange one lately is we're getting a lot of interest from Japan. We couldn't figure it out at the last 5 conferences. They're like, come to Japan, we'll give you everything, and we'll let you set up shop and all this stuff. And finally, I asked the guy, what's the deal? Why all this interest? And they said, well, the Olympics is coming up, and there's a huge identity security issue of getting in and out of the events and security and all that. And that's partly the driver. And they said the other thing, there's no real fintech community in Japan. In Japan, when they invent something, they just sell it to a big corporation and it's over. There's no medium in between where fintechs collaborate in the big fintech community. So they come a lot to San Francisco and to New York to try to get fintechs to come over there to kind of build some sort of community and get bought out or whatever the case may be. But so it's interesting markets. And India now we're launching next year as well because there the whole system's going cashless, right? So identity is a huge problem. There's a lot of impetus to provide identity solutions.
The largest biometric experiment in the
Yeah,
world
that's right.
in human history,
Yeah.
with all ID cards for 1.3 billion Indians are biometric based.
Yeah.
That's 4 times U.S. population.
No, but that's next year.
No, that's
Not-
live.
That's cool.
That is absolutely live. I have my biometric ID card, and it's not. This is not new technology.
You have it on you?
No. I
How
do
does
not.
that? What does that work? How does that?
I couldn't go into all of the exact specifics. You can Google it.
It's also iris.
Yeah.
Yeah. They did take my iris scan, so I do my face thing, fingerprint. They don't do blood. I have an ID card for the Middle East. Gives you certain access. That does have blood on it.
That has blood?
Blood on it. Yeah.
So, like you have to put your blood on the card every time you want to.
No. It just has the sequence of it, so like I can. The other thing, this is not entirely new. Is anyone here a veteran? The U.S. military? Okay. CAT cards. Your CAT card is biometric. So this is old technology. Sorry?
It's chip-based.
It, well, it has certain the new one. They have biometric information with it on the chip, and so if you're going to use any government-issued laptop, you're going to have to put that in, or any location and so on. So, in a sense, it is not the biometric like this, but they have that information in there. So.
And if you guys want to, who has Samsung phones? Who's ever done like the fish? Wow, they're all Apple.
Welcome to Miami.
So when you go to set up the facial on your Samsung phone, I did this on stage, and unfortunately Samsung was there too, and they weren't very happy. But the first thing that it says is, disclaimer: your phone could be unlocked by someone or someone that looks like you. So I'm like, oh, this is a great setup.
All right. Thanks, Alessandro. Anybody other questions for Alessandro? Let's give Alessandro a round of applause. Another Miami entrepreneur.
Yeah, so we have just one more speaker, but then before let's introduce our next event for the AI Blockchain Association. Before our major global conference, we're going to do a hands-on workshop. So this is just an intro. We'll actually do the hands-on. We'll be very programmer friendly. But if you're not a programmer, we're doing kind of hello worldish type stuff. You'll figure it out. So our 2 meetups ago, we did a blockchain gamer conference. So basically now we're gonna extend that blockchain games to put those blockchain games into a magically headset and use the Unity 3D AI engine, so it's Unity 3D to do the AI game with Magically on the blockchain. So it'll be, that one day you're gonna like learn everything. So really cool. So we'll post that. It's probably gonna be at the Magic Center at the Miami-Dade College. So we're gonna use their new green screen motion control room. It'll be kind of cool. We'll like dress you up with a motion capture suit. So
When are you doing that? When is that?
So I just got introduced to Mauricio just today.
Okay.
So we'll figure that out. But like, that's kind of the sizzle. The real thing is we're going to go into Unity 3D, do AI within Unity 3D for the Magically or SDK. So it'll be very much hands-on. So like, we'll have some prerequisites. We'll download the software, download beforehand. So we do these workshops all the time. We usually react with other things too. So we know what works, what doesn't. But people even with no experience can be very confident at the end of 3 hours. So it's basically, we break it down into small steps. So
For AI?
you need to know about this topic. So so the last person, Ivan, he's our local Zuckerberg, our future Zuckerberg. My take is the #1 thing about Zuckerberg is he dropped out. So Ivan dropped out. Zuckerberg's actually graduating UM. I didn't know. If I knew, I would have dropped out like a day before graduation.
That'll be that'll be our motto at UM. You too can drop out.
Yeah, and like even them, they're here a lot. Like Mark Zuckerberg's sister married a kid from high school up in Broward, so like she's here all the time. It's crazy. Anyway, so Ivan has a really cool new job. He dropped out of UM for it.
Got a professor here from UM.
No hard feelings. So, I mean, you can't tell on my shirt. I was in Blue Beta for a year. I started June last year when I started UM a year ago. And I was doing software engineering at UM. And
You were what?
I was doing software engineering at UM.
Oh.
Prior to starting at Blue Beta, I did native mobile app development for about 2 years, doing personal projects and just little stuff I wanted to do for fun. And I just learned programming through that and just doing these little projects. And I got that job at Blue Beta, and I started at UM as a software engineer. And 2 semesters in, I wasn't really focusing at all. I was focusing on my work more than anything. So I decided, hey, I think just focus on work more, and then come back maybe when if I want to do something different or something like that, because I was really kind of ahead of the game in terms of learning the software engineering at UM. That is. So I started a online community for cryptocurrency and smart contract developers online. It's called Our Crypto Devs. It has a subreddit and a Discord server, if you guys know what Discord is. And on there, when I started that server, I met one of the team managers for IDEX. And IDEX is, if you guys don't know about IDEX, they're the leading decentralized Ethereum exchange. So if you go on any DApp radar period, you will see the #1 DApp, IDEX. They're completely phenomenal. They're a DEX, but they're a hybrid DEX, meaning that they keep the user funds on a smart contract, yet handle the order books and trade matching off the contract, off the blockchain. So that way it can still be a very fast acting exchange, yet have the user funds safe in case of anything were to be compromised. So I met the team manager in about May, I want to say, this year, and we talked a lot. And when I started that community, he posted a job posting for IDEX, and I was like, "Are you serious, man? Like, is that really open?" And he's like, "Yeah." So it took like I think a month and a half for me to finally get integrated, but yeah. So I've been there for a month now. I'm officially a junior engineer. I've been working with Solidity with their lead engineer, working on the contract with them. They only actually had one Solidity engineer there, so I've actually taught him some things about Solidity, which he didn't really know, and there's a lot of quirks to it. And a lot of gotchas too, but that's it.
What is your app doing? Human language so these people can understand.
And what's Solidity?
Solidity is Solidity is the main smart contract language for Ethereum. So it's about 3 years old now, I think. It has a lot of problems, but it also offers, it's the first of its kind, really. So people are constantly improving it. There's a few languages based off, like
there's a few languages that have already improved off of the flaws of Solidity already, but Solidity is the first smart contract language, and it's meant for Ethereum. So other platforms also use Solidity, even though they're not Ethereum. Hashgraph is one that's been really popular lately that will be using Solidity. Enigma is another one. Any questions?
What is your app doing that a human being can understand it?
So,
It's not the programmer and not the AI.
So, using Ethereum, right, using smart contracts, there's a way that you can sort of escrow that you can say, okay, hold my assets here, wait until someone accepts these assets for the price I want them for, and then send them both out, right? So that way your money is entrusted to the network, and people who are trying to hack it or whatever, they can't get to it because it's trusted in that smart contract. It only says, release it if this happens. And the moment that matching happens, it releases it to the chain. I don't know if you guys have used Ether Delta, but they're a much slower decentralized exchange because they do everything on chain, and that has its own downsides and upsides. But
So you're doing it off chain and therefore you are faster.
we do the order matching option, which is what is the main speed about. So you deposit your funds into the smart contract, and it says, okay, you own this much, and then when you want to do a trade, you sign the trade you want to take with your private key, and then our order book assigns your trade to that key, and when someone else wants to take that order, for example, they sign that order that you put, and then it matches both of them, and then makes a transaction to the chain, and modifies the balances on the smart contracts. So that you can say, okay, you bought this, or you sold that, or whatever, for this much Ethereum, or so be it.
Could you post a link of what you're working on the lead-up for today?
Sure.
Everybody can check it out.
IDEX.market.
Okay.
That's your, I'll post it.
Do you know the token store?
Excuse me?
It's a DEX.
Is that,
But it's one of the latest. We're using the token store, so I just wanted. I'm gonna send you a link. I already got it here.
Okay.
Telegram, so I send you later.
Okay, sure.
There's on the subject of AI, there's a Washington Elite AI Blockchain Summit that the GBA is going to be hosting let me see, on November 30th to December 1st. John McAfee is going to be there, so if you have an interest in cybersecurity at all, he's a confirmed speaker.
Or at a party.
Or if you want
Or a party.
And bring your guns.
Or South America.
PC. So that's happening. There's also a blockchain shift conference that's happening next Thursday and Friday. We have a 40% discount code, so if you guys haven't registered or you're interested in going, let me know, and we'll share our discount code with you, so you guys can go ahead and attend. We're one of the sponsors for that conference. So our time is up here for the room. We could try to hang around a little bit until we get kicked out, or we could try to migrate over to the hallway before Lisa comes up here and gets upset with us.
Comment about this conference, if you have an EDU, email address, you can get the free, all the alumni can get the free pass to the
Blockchain shift?
Yeah.
Blockchain shift, there is
Oh, wonderful.
it's $99.
$99.
However, they were distributed substantially.
And you could buy those
So-
EDU addresses online.
I want to just mention other two companies that are here that work with the blockchain, that are signed here, that is healthcare related. She has a lot of implication, Patty. She has a lot of implication with the ID management because the healthcare data will be placed on the blockchain. And so there are going to be interaction because of the HIPAA reason and strong regulatory issues with the healthcare information. It will be, so the whole healthcare will be associated to an ID management system, and everything will be stored on the blockchain. With that, there is also Preventor here. Preventor is another company that is working, that Jaime represented, is another company that works with ID management, particularly in the area that I was talking about with economic ID. When we were talking about the economic ID, your economic profile will be stored in the blockchain case. And he helps companies that works in the blockchain space to monitor for anti-money laundering, terrorist financing, fraud, and all bad actions.
Thanks, John.
Both of them there. With this, I think we ran out of time. Guys, it's been absolutely pleasure. See you next time.
Thanks for coming. Free drinks upstairs.
Where's the bar closed?
Yeah, I've been gone all day. I just came here. I thought it was like, I didn't know it would get done at 8:30. I thought I got done at 9. So like, yeah, I just came here. I'm so proud of my way. What do you? Andy, meet up with Andy. He's leaving tomorrow. Oh, okay. So yeah, it's like impossible. Yeah. So I'm not like, well, I've been gone all day, so I just get off for a walk. And once this was over, I was just like, I gotta. Hi. Don't worry, I'm not Cash. What's that? AI, artificial Well, don't email me. This used to be. I no longer.
Are you in Miami or working?
I live here.
Oh, South Miami. Maybe you go to the University of Miami to speak about your event.
Oh, absolutely. I'd be happy to.
Yeah, I did your car. We were not far from the
Yes, yeah. Well, in fact, a lot of our sort of core team, we are putting this together, are PhDs at the event.
That's good. A lot of them will benefit.
So the folks with the computational, the high computational, is a match.
I gave you her card.
Yeah. Okay. I would love that. So we're going to have 3 days. It may tend to become a lot more academic. So there's a lot of.
So what is the theme?
High data. It's data science.
You're doing this part.
It's really just data science.
Okay.
You're just gonna. So for Pi Data, a good example of this is look at the last Pi Data conference in Berlin, and just look at all the different types of presentations and all the talks they had. I'm management consultant. So I'm in conversations with market leaders at Boston Consulting Group. I've been doing pure business strategy. They've seen my work anytime we walk into Home Depot. I was part of the leadership team where we doubled the size. Typical MBA. But for the last almost 10 years, everything I did in strategy was what people now call data science. Now I code this, so with machine learning, driverless, artificial intelligence, I work with clients